What's up, fiends? Alucard here. Today we're going to talk about my top 13 lost movies. All right, so we're just going to do them in the order that they came out. So this is not in any particular order. It's just these are the 13 movies that I would love to see. I wish they would refine them. I wish they'd release them. So yeah. So in case you don't know, a bunch of silent films were lost. There's about 90% of silent films are lost. I know, crazy, right? But there are some that are very, very intriguing, and I would love for them to find copies so we could see these guys. So that's what this list is. So let's get started. All right, first up from 1913, The Werewolf by Universal Pictures. Yeah, this is an early Universal monster of sorts. It's directed by Henry McRae. It stars Clarence Burton, Marie Wallkamp, Phyllis Gordon, and Lou Warrington. Now, this is the first known werewolf film. The very first one, at least that we know of. The plot kind of concerns a Navajo woman. She becomes a witch after erroneously believing that her husband has abandoned her. She teaches these skills to her daughter, and her daughter transforms into a wolf to carry out vengeance after against the invading white settlers. Then 100 years after the daughter's death, the witch comes back from the dead for revenge. So this sounds awesome. I would love to see that, and I'm a big werewolf fan. I know I'm Alucard. I'm also a big vampire fan. But yeah, I love werewolf films too, especially good ones. And this one sounds really good. The last known whereabouts of this one, all prints have been destroyed in a 1924 fire at Universal Studios. So the likelihood of this one is unfortunately pretty much zero. But as you can see, what remains is a few remaining stills. Also a 1913 copy of Universal Weekly, which was a promotional magazine back in the day. And it kind of spells out the story in pretty good detail. And that's pretty much what we have left of The Werewolf. All right, number 2. From 1915, from Ocean Film Corporation, we have Life Without Soul. I've also heard it called Life Without a Soul, but everything I see has just Life Without Soul. It's directed by Joseph W. Smiley. It stars Percy Standing and George DeCarlton. And this is the second film adaptation of the Frankenstein story. So it's about the brute man, as they call him in this one, kills the sister of his creator, and on her wedding night, no less. The creator kind of pursues the monster across Europe, and supposedly, and since I can spoil it, I guess, because no one's ever going to see it, most likely. It turns out that everything's like a dream. So this was an early twist. So I thought that was kind of funny. It sounds really cool. I know he travels through Europe, and I know he ends up shooting like the Frankenstein and stuff, and then the creator like dies of exhaustion, I believe, or something. Yeah, it's a whole big craziness. So they definitely took liberties with it. But unfortunately, all that remains is we know the plot, as I just said. We know the actors and the producers and stuff that were in it. We know some shooting locations, and there is an advertising poster. So that's all that's left of this movie. All right, next up we have The Golem from 1915, aka The Monster of Fate. Now, you're saying there is a movie called The Golem. You are correct, but that one was released in 1920. This one was 5 years before. It is written, directed, and stars Paul Wegener and Enrique Galeen, who also did the 1920 version. So technically, the Golem is part of a trilogy. There's the Golem from 1915. There's another movie we're going to talk about in a little bit, and then the Golem of 1920, all directed and starring Paul Wegener and Enrique Galeen. So it's kind of the first horror trilogy. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, the first two movies are lost, unfortunately. So this one, the 1915 version of the Golem, is about an antiques dealer searching the ruins of a Jewish temple. He of course he finds a golem, which is he's like a clay statue. He's brought to life by a rabbi using a magical amulet, and of course the golem is resurrected at first to be like a servant, but the golem actually falls in love with the guy's daughter. So when she does not return that love, the golem goes on a rampage and starts murdering a bunch of people. Now I'm a big fan of the 1920 version, so I would like to see this one as well. I'd love to see all three. I think all three would be really cool, and I'm gonna get to the second one in a little bit. But what remains of this one is the Deutsche Kinemathek Film Archive. They possess a 108-meter fragment of the movie, which is like a few surviving clips. There are some clips available, and it shows Paul Wegener in costume, stumbling around kind of like he does in the other movies. So the fourth movie I'm going to mention is called A Daughter of the Gods from 1916, released by Fox. This one is directed by Herbert Brennan, and it stars Annette Kellerman and William E. Shea. So this one is about a sultan agreeing to help an evil witch destroy a mysterious beauty. In return, the witch will bring his son back to life. This film was very controversial for its time because of gratuitous nudity. Yeah. The character of Anisha, played by Annette Kellerman, who was an Australian swimmer, by the way. She was a big swimming star. Her scenes are regarded as kind of the first complete nude scenes by a major star. There's this big waterfall scene, and I mean, her body's covered up though. It's not real. It's not like super crazy stuff. I mean, I guess for 1916 it was, which I get. So it was it was kind of scandalous. But the story itself sounds pretty interesting, I think. And basically what remains of this one is a bunch of stills and publicity photos. Of course, mostly of Annette Kellerman. Go figure. All right, number 5, we have Das Phantom der Oper. Or, of course, The Phantom of the Opera in English. From 1916, this is directed by Ernst Matre. It stars Niels Olaf Christender, and it is written by Greta Schroeder, who, if you know, is one of the stars of Nosferatu. Yep, the 1922 Nosferatu. So she was also a writer. I did not know that. So I thought that was interesting. Of course, this is based on the Gaston Leroux novel. In case you don't know the story, I guess I'll tell you. So in Paris in the 1880s, beautiful opera singer Christine is captured and held captive and against her will by the infamous Phantom of the Opera. Now, I believe this was the first attempt. I could be wrong on that one. I'm not 100% sure. So unfortunately, what remains, not much. There's no copies. There's no photographs. There's not even really a poster. All that's known is that it was made in Germany in the autumn of 1915. That's pretty much all we know. So it's like it's kind of a total mystery. I know it stinks. All right, number 6 from 1917. Now we're going to talk about the sequel to The Golem, called The Golem and the Dancing Girl, also directed by Paul Wegener, and this time co-directed by Rokas Gliese. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. I'll probably put it on the screen so you can see what it looks like. All right, so this one is not. We don't know too much about the plot on this one, but it appears to be a spoof of the 1915 movie, which I was like, wait, what? So Paul Wegener plays an actor, and upon discovering that his performance of the Golem instilled fear to people, uh, he decides to wear the Golem costume to a party he's attending in order to impress a dancer who's going to be there. Yeah, so this may be the first spoof. I don't know. And I don't know. Like this sounds like it would just be fun. You know what I mean? Like I just think it would be cool to see. Unfortunately, it's completely gone. There's not very much left, if anything. All right, number 7. I always have trouble pronouncing this one, so I'm probably going to butcher it. Alraune, something like that, from 1918. It's a Hungarian film, directed by Michael Curtiz and Edmund Fritz, and stars Giza Erdely. This one, of course, is a variation on the original legend of Alraune, in which a mad scientist creates a beautiful but demonic child from a forced union between a woman and a mandrake root. So it's like half plant, half human. Yeah. I know that there's another version a few years later, which is available readily. It's on YouTube. It's it's kind of everywhere. But I would like to see the even older version because I just think that would be cool. I don't know. I mean, it's so bizarre and out there. All right, we're up to number 8. The First Men in the Moon from 1919, directed by Bruce Gordon and J.L.V. Lee. This one is based on the H.G. Wells science fiction novel First Men in the Moon from 1901. An elderly inventor scientist guy ascends to the moon in a sphere coated with cavarit, spelled like favorite, but with a C. It's a substance which has the property of neutralizing the laws of gravity. So after strange adventures with the Selenites, which is like the moon people, a guy named Bedford deserts the professor and returns to Earth alone in order to make a fortune for himself out of cavarite. Basically, all that's left of this one, unfortunately, is a couple of stills from the production and a plot synopsis. Yeah, so this one's from what we know, this one's completely gone too. Unfortunately, there's not very much hope on this one, but it does sound interesting, and it's one of the first like big sci-fi flicks, full length, I should say. All right, number 9, The Hunchback and the Dancer from 1920. This one's directed by my favorite silent film director, F.W. Murnau, and it stars John Gatwat. Yep, Gatwat. And Sasha Gora. This one is about a repulsive hunchback named James Wilton. And he changes his relationship with women when he discovers a diamond mine in Java. After a breakup, the hunchback manages to taint his ex with a poisonous substance that will kill anyone who kisses her. Yeah, this sounds great. All right, moving on to number 10, Il Mostro di Frankenstein from 1920, aka The Monster of Frankenstein, directed by Eugenio Testa, stars Luciano Albertini and Umberto Guaracino. Basically, this is the third adaptation of Frankenstein that we know of. Of course, the first version was found not that long ago from 1910, and that one is available on YouTube and a bunch of other places. So you can, it's public domain. You can watch it, and I think it's like 12 minutes long or so. And it is really interesting. I do recommend it, especially if you like the old stuff. But this one is the third adaptation. And this one is, of course, Italian. The last known whereabouts is It's believed that the film soon disappeared after its release because it was heavily censored. Um, and they had to re-edit the whole thing, and it ended up being like 39 minutes long or something. Yeah, it was originally over an hour. So yeah, the censors were even back then in 1920. They were like, "This is too much." Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I would love to see this movie. This one's very high. This is probably my second most, for me personally, my second most wanted. But basically, what remains is we only have a couple of production stills and some promotional material, and that's it. That's all we got. We don't have any clips, nothing. So unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to get it, but would be really cool if we did. All right, number 11, Dracula's Death from 1921. It's an Austrian movie. I'm not going to even try to pronounce the full title. I'll put it here. It is directed by Karoli Lajthe, stars Paul Askinus and Margit Lux. Sure, I'm butchering some of that. My apologies, folks. So the plot is about a woman experiencing frightening visions after being admitted into an insane asylum where one of the inmates claims to be Dracula. So yeah, this would be awesome. Now this is a year before Nosferatu. So yeah, this is known as kind of the first Dracula adaptation, even though it's not. They just kind of use the character. They don't. It's not it's not the same story or anything. What remains is we have 4 publicity photos and a short novella. But yeah, the photos look pretty cool. The guy looks wacky as all heck. So yeah, this one's definitely high up on my list as well. Hopefully one day. All right, number 12. Of course, we have to mention London After Midnight from 1927, released by MGM. Written and directed by Todd Browning, stars Lon Chaney, Marceline Day, and Conrad Nagel. Now you're saying there's a version. Well, sort of. In 2002, Turner Classic Movies commissioned a restoration producer to produce a 45-minute reconstruction of the famous lost film using all the still photographs and the surviving original script that they have. It was included on the Lon Chaney Collection DVD set. I've watched it. It's one of those, man, what could have been, So yeah, so what remains is all the stills, some lobby cards, a movie poster, and the original script. I guess I'll tell you what it's about now. All right, so the story presents vampires as prime suspects in an unsolved murder. The initial death is ruled a suicide, but something's not quite adding up. And Lon Chaney actually plays the 2 roles in this one, as the cop and the criminal. And the criminal, of course, is known as the man in the beaver hat, which I'm sure you've seen. It's a very iconic image. And of course, this is probably the most sought after silent film that's lost. The last known copy was destroyed in the 1965 MGM Vault Fire. Unless somebody has one hidden somewhere, we're probably never going to see it, unfortunately. But we're lucky we do have what we do have. So, all right, now this brings us to our last film, number 13. This one's called Four Devils from 1928, released by Fox. This one's also directed by F.W. Murnau and stars Janet Gaynor. This movie concerns 4 orphans who become like a high wire act, and it centers around all the sinister goings on at this circus. An old clown takes in the 4 children to protect them from the brutal circus owner, who's currently their guardian. He raises them up and he trains them to become acrobats. After a few years, the 4 children soon become successful trapeze artists, and they call themselves the Four Devils. Now, Charles and Marion, 2 of them, are now a couple, so they're not related. They're all, But when they perform at Cirque Olympia in Paris, Charles gets involved with a beautiful woman. Marion learns about the relationship and is distracted by it, of course. At the finale of her performance, in which she works without a net, she crashes. Marion survives, and Charles, touched by the near catastrophe, returns to his girlfriend. Now, this, again, I'm a huge Murnau fan. And this one is this one might be my number one. I don't know. It's I mean all 13 of these I want to see. I'd love to have any of these. Um, but yeah, this sounds really good and really interesting. So the last known whereabouts, um, supposedly the only surviving print, was lost by actress Mary Duncan, who's one of the stars of the film, who had borrowed it from Fox, wanting it to show to a group of friends in Florida. Now, Mary was aware that it was a dangerous nitrate print and assumed that Fox had others. So she threw the only copy into the ocean. And it is now lost. So it's somewhere, probably deep down in the Atlantic. So it's somewhere around there. Man, that's kind of our only hope at this moment. But what remains in the 2003 release of Sunrise from 1927, also a Murnau movie, on the DVD, Fox presented as an extra a reconstruction of what this movie might have been like. It combines voiceovers, photographs, and conceptual sketches. And that's pretty much what remains. A similar situation to London at Midnight. But yeah, so that's unfortunately we'll probably never see it unless somebody goes diving and miraculously finds it. Also, and the other rumor I heard was that Mary Duncan took it to heart that the critics did not like her performance, so that's the other reason she threw it into the ocean. So yeah, so who knows what's true, but it's an interesting story, and yeah, I'd love to see it. That is my top 13 lost horror films that I would love to see. So let me know in the comments below. Do you want to see any? Would you like to have seen any of these, or what do you think of them? Just let me know. I'd love to know. All right. So other than that, guys, just remember to stay spooky. Peace.